Welcome everyone to this new episode on IoT and IP Explained with Claudia Tapia. I'm truly excited to have you with us today. In this episode, we will talk about artificial intelligence of things. And with us is Rubén Cano. Ruben is an associate lawyer at Baker McKenzie, specialized in the areas of intellectual property and technology. He has undertaken law and economic studies in not one but 3 universities, Alicante, Panthéon-Sorbonne and Bocconi. And he is the man to contact if you have questions on privacy, connectivity, platforms, artificial intelligence, and basically anything related to intellectual property. He's also an academic fellow of Bocconi University, where in addition to teaching, he is involved in research projects related to digital commerce and regulation. Ruben, welcome. I'm so happy that you could make it.
That's my pleasure, Claudia. Thank you for having me here. It's so great being with you and with the audience today.
Excellent. And I understand, before we continue, that you're going to speak on your own capacity.
That's correct.
Yes. Claudia making sure Ruben is not losing his job next week. I'm in such a good mood. You cannot imagine. For those that they don't know, I'm today in Madrid, one of my favorite cities. In the plane, we had a really entertaining captain. Mm-hmm. So he brought us a poem, made jokes, and he ended with, "May the force be with you." So I feel really empowered today for this interview. Let's start, if you agree.
Yeah.
Where does the Internet of Things meet artificial intelligence?
That's a very good and difficult question to answer. From my non-technical perspective, the issue with the Internet of Things is that we have a lot of data. We have a lot of information that we want to extract value from. Whenever we have some IoT, such wearable, for instance, or some sensor that we want to use or that we have implemented in some XY context, having AI allows us, on the one hand, to process those data in an automated form, moving from raw data to data that actually the machine can understand. When it comes to processes, makes it easier for the process to work, meaning that automating the process and implementing AI in the IoT processes may facilitate how the information is conveyed, we can speak later about latency and stuff, how that latency is reduced. There are a lot of protocols that are working now with artificial intelligence.
So latency, I understand this is the time between sending and receiving information or data.
Yes.
And the lower the time, the better. So low latency, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very relevant. For instance, one very good example is online surgery. For online surgery, those that actually are carrying out all the activity need to have low latency because they need a lot of accuracy when performing the task. So whenever we have low latency, is because the information and the is fast. Comes to us faster. That's why, for instance, companies such as Microsoft, Amazon Web Services are building also data centers in the region, in the area, in order to reduce the time that from point A to point B takes to send some information. Because in that, path, we can lose or gain some accuracy when it comes to the use of the device.
Yes, and it's super important. We see it, for example, also with connected cars. Avoiding accidents if you have the sensors between the cars communicated and they take too long, then you will have potentially accidents. So that's why we see in this sense that cellular standards are playing a big role, especially 4G and 5G. But I'm going to go back because we are deviating a bit. You also mentioned raw data. What is raw data?
For data, let's imagine, for instance, we are speaking a language, right? And I won't answer to your question right away. I will just make a little detour in order to try to be clear enough. Whenever we speak a language, we like people to speak in a language we understand, because otherwise, if we are being spoken in Russian, for instance, I don't speak Russian, I don't speak Georgian, I don't speak other language. In order for me to understand things that I have to process, they have to maybe act on or whatever, I need that information to be told to me in a language that I understand. Mm-hmm. So the same happens with AI and with machines. Machines have to process the information they receive in the form of data in a way that they understand what they are being told. In that ecosystem, oftentimes two different ways to call data are raw data, structured data, and unstructured data. And raw data is data that you have there, meaning is data that doesn't have a language, is data, for instance, that you receive from a sensor, but is not structured at all. I mean, the machine as such won't understand that data because it's raw, it's not processed, it's not, no one work on the data in order to make the data understandable for the machine to extract conclusions from.
Now I understand. Very good. Okay, so we were talking about how, what does the Internet of Things, where does the Internet of Things meet artificial intelligence?
It meets artificial intelligence in different, I mean, in many aspects. We wouldn't have enough time, but I like to highlight two very aspects. One may be the one regarding protocols and efficiency and transmission of information between IoT devices. And that's very, very important. As I was suggesting before, we have a lot of protocols that are AI powered or that implement AI solutions in order to, let's say, at the same time, the structure for sending and receiving information is working. They have some AI system trying to make better the system, trying to make sure that the way in sending and receiving information is the best possible way. And then the other aspect I like to highlight is the one regarding data. AI makes it possible to rework data and to process and structure data without the intervention of a human being. What does that mean? That we don't need someone taking raw data and putting labels to data and saying, no, but this data relates to aspect A and that to aspect B. And if we have in mind the language example I gave before, is like we are being translated automatically from one language we don't understand to one that the machine understands. So that changes everything because we can have data from the sensors that now we may not actually extract value from to an ecosystem where that value can be extracted, and the possibilities I believe are endless.
Endless possibilities.
Endless.
You already provided some examples, but maybe you can also bring a couple of more.
Mm-hmm. And the first one is one very familiar for everyone that may be listening to us, the chatbot.
It's chat windows, I guess, when I have a problem and I'm trying to find a human. And then I start getting these chats. And I think one of them was very helpful and it could solve my problem. The other times it ended with waiting and not understanding the problem or being more complex. And then finally, after some minutes, bringing us to humans. So if your companies have listened to me, please don't fire the hotline employees. The chatbots are still not ready for this. But, this is like many other technologies. They start, they learn from it, and they evolve. Mm-hmm. Other examples?
Well, maybe another example I could highlight is indoor air quality measurement and improvement systems. I'm saying air, but it can be water measurement, it can be whatever resource you imagine. How can we do that? I mean, whenever, for instance, this is a very good example with air or with water. You have the AC at home. You have a sensor that is telling you how much consumption are you making, what's the impact of the AC consumption you are making. And those sensors are very, very interesting. There is also in the industrial sector, they have a lot of sensor as well to measure when some spare part will have to be changed or replaced.
This increase efficiency, sometimes also safety.
Yeah.
What else? Other examples?
For instance, thermal control for sensitive products, chemical plants, industry, medical fields. Particularly in the energy sector, we have the quality and the data we have is very important. You need to select a very specific pressure for the plant to work in an efficient way. So having sensors that communicate between each other and that extract conclusions automatically for a person just to supervise what's going on, having all the graphics and having all in one place, that is very important. I'm not speaking about changing people for machines, but also enhancing the role that people can have with more information that is actually retrieved in real time, right?
So they could take better decisions and maybe faster.
Yes, with information that before they didn't have, maybe it wasn't possible to retrieve the type of information, real-time information in the way we are doing now. Sometimes we actually think of very sophisticated scenarios of the ChatGPTs and of the world, but there are many other use cases that are made possible thanks to the interaction between AI and IoT.
Excellent. Maybe a couple of other examples, like robot applications. I'm thinking, even if this sounds really futuristic, I like to mention a couple of examples, like medical robots that are used in surgeries, as you were mentioning before, or the agricultural robots, which are employed for planted seeds or monitoring field conditions. And even many of you might have it at home, a domestic robot, like a vacuum cleaning. And
I have one.
I have one too, yes, confess. Me too, life-changing. And one of my favorite ones, educational robots, which are used for teaching aids or as teaching aids in schools and universities in order to engage students. And they move, perform tasks, and some of them, they can even respond to voice commands. But these educational robots are not to be confused with AI-empowered tools supporting university students, for example, as personal AI tutors, which also is a great thing, right? All these things we didn't have, so good things that can happen.
Yeah, wearable technologies are a very good example of IoT. We say IoT at the end, or objects that interact with each other, right? So wearables, smartwatches, fitness trackers, many, all wearables you can imagine. Also, there is another good example with this, which is indoor location detection. There is an Italian company that actually uses this type of technology so that people inside places can arrive to the place they need to arrive. There are a lot of people maybe in the I'm thinking in hospitals and that type of places that normally are huge, and some people oftentimes get a bit confused.
Or in the European Patent Office. It's come from one unit to another. It's like
that would be very useful to have that. So we have some sensors for blind people that don't know where to go. So we help them with stimulating them depending on the sensor, where it plays, where not. And that also is a really good use. That is facilitated by the use of artificial intelligence. I'm not saying that artificial intelligence actually is making this possible. It's making this possible now, meaning this is all possible, but we need more resources, we need more people working on that, and the use cases would be more time and cost consuming. That way, we're kind of speeding up the process.
I see. Excellent. I think we all understood some amazing applications that we see in this interaction from the IoT and artificial intelligence. Let's move a little bit to this IP area. So what are the implications of intellectual property and privacy in the area of artificial intelligence of things?
Many implications. It depends on what's the angle you're looking from. If you're looking from the angle of I want to protect some AI solution for the IoT ecosystem, meaning some technical solution for a technical problem, we know that's a patent, then we would have a patent, of course. If we're looking to the underlying code that actually is used to create the artificial intelligence, the software, that would be another example of IP that is being developed and created in the context of AI and Internet of Things. The fact is that those are two separate animals that get together. And in order to get those animals together, we need some software being developed. So in that space, oftentimes open source software steps in, which is not very easy to analyze. You have to go to underlying licenses and see whether we can protect that or whether you are actually giving away some rights that should be protected by the company. But if we're looking at the whole, let's say, interaction, I say you go to patents, also regarding the product, the protocol, standard essential patent as well, that may also have some embedded AI applications, right? Or use cases within the standard. And and copyright mainly.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot, yeah.
You were mentioning standard essential patents, SEPs. So those are these patented inventions which are essential for the standard to be implemented, that we could see, for example, in cellular standards, in 4G and 5G. And we will do another episode on this, but you were mentioning all these areas which are very, very important. What else?
Well, we have. I was mentioning the how the thing works, right, and what we want to protect. But considering that we have some, whenever we have AI, we have some output, right? We have some input that is helped by the Internet of Things. We have a lot of sensors, a lot of interactions. Then we have some processing that is made thanks to the algorithm. In the end, we have the output. So another thing is how the output, let's say, is being created.
The result.
The result, yes, that's right. So who's the owner of that? Who's not? That's another question. Assuming that the output is protectable as such, which is a hell of a question, if I may, pardon me the expression. So this is another question that tends to be attributed to IP because oftentimes what you're protecting are intangible assets. And in that vein, there is no clear-cut answer. It will radically depend whether we are in front of, I don't know, a picture automatically generated, or we are in front of a mere action, because the output may be an action. The output after the data goes through the model, maybe no, but you have to switch on to switch on the coffee machine. I mean, and that as such couldn't be protectable, right? But depending on the data you get in the model and of course the output, you will have a different conclusion when it comes to IP.
Could you give us an example where you think here I imagine that the output could be protected?
Well, I'm thinking of just a random example. It just pops up in my mind. In the agricultural sector, we have a lot of potential inputs, right? If you have those machines that go over the land, that are working the land and maybe nurturing the seeds and stuff, that may receive if you put a sensor in that, you may receive data from temperature, from the how dry the ground is, about how much time the machine is taking from point A to point B. And having all that and translating that to an output passing through a model, of course, that actually is kind of makes sense, let's say, that is structured. I mean, we may think about, I don't know, database sui generis protection, right? And or of a trade secret, if I may, as well. Or there is, I mean, this is just an example I'm thinking of, but I think there are many, just like this one.
Very good. Security concerns, data privacy.
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. That is not directly related to IP. Actually, something that is very anchored in our way of living, right? And that regulators and the public sector has been speaking about a lot about since the entry into force of this GDPR in 2016, and they continue doing so. And the fact that we have saw those wearables or AI-powered IoT items means that we have a lot more interaction with them, that we use them. They may facilitate life, but we have to understand what is going on, because most of the time personal data protection is being used in the context. So I understand from a security and data protection perspective, it is important to be, let's say, aligned and to be compliant, and as well for the consumer to be empowered enough to understand what the use means. That goes beyond actually the regulation as such. That is important. But security, whenever we have anything that involves a direct usage from the consumer, a continuous use, I think security is really important. Particularly noting that we have also like interaction across devices. It's not just that I'm wearing a smartwatch and that's it. I mean, I have my smartwatch, I have my cell phone, I have a lot of items that actually speaking to each other, and that may present some concerns, right?
I think you are the kind of guy who literally buys the next device interconnected. I'm looking at you. I think you're already having wearables, phone, this and that. But yes, security concerns are, of course, part of the equation. That's why to have this balance so that we can all benefit from the many possibilities, but on the other hand, make sure that we get protected in that sense. What about cybersecurity-related legislation?
Cybersecurity-related legislation. Let's say in the European Union, there have been some developments recently. What they call the NIS directive. We have number 2 now that actually provides for a more structural framework related to cybersecurity, and provides also for the private sectors the private sector with some legal certainty to know what they have to do. Whenever you receive a cyber attack, you don't know what to do, and that goes all the way through up to the top management, to the C-level, because that's a really important thing, right? And the potential impact whenever we have a real harmful cyber attack, that's something that no one actually expects until it happens. So with this new framework, together with the data protection framework related to data breaches, we have kind of some, let's say, general guidance on what companies have to do. There's a lot of work to do, even in the European Union. We've been assisting. I'm going so corporate. I'm speaking in my personal capacities.
You're already
I've been participating in some and the team with some things to that, and you actually see what can the potential impact be. And whenever you, negotiating, I haven't been directly engaged in negotiations, right? But there are a lot of stories of the hackers that tell and negotiate and ask you for some money, and you don't know what to do because you have a lot of data compromise. And that may be not even about data, but about accessibility or availability of the service, right? If we have, I don't know, a medical surgery machine that is being attacked, cybersecurity is key, right? We cannot have a surgery machine being compromised. That cannot happen.
That I hope it doesn't happen yet.
Right. So that's a kind of a thing that I like very much. An example that I went to a conference to learn something. I love learning things, and this guy was saying, whenever you go skiing, right? The first thing you do is to put on your helmet, right? And you wouldn't think of going out and just skiing without your helmet on. It is the same with security, cybersecurity, and the, let's say, digital ecosystem. You have to be protected, and you have to think about your passwords. You have to think about data you're giving, you're retrieving. You have to think about what's the operating system and how that is better or worse for your digital security. And oftentimes we tend to think that it's only the obligation of the private companies to give us that security. But I also believe that we have to make an effort. I think we have to be much more conscious about our security. The ecosystem is made of many pieces. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a puzzle that we put together. And a very important piece of the puzzle that we oftentimes forget is the user empowerment. I don't know, you wouldn't use an axe to, I don't know, shave you, right? It's something that you wouldn't think of.
I don't even think about shaving me.
Yeah.
At least on my face.
Yeah, but you actually, sometimes it's a very, very basic and very silly example. You put us a password like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you use the same password for 5, 6 accounts, and you don't have a password manager that actually helps you to do that. I think there are a lot of things that sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we just live better without knowing them.
We can sleep this.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was thinking, I'm gonna tell him to call my mom because I'm trying for years that she changes.
It's ABCD.
It's terrible. Ruben, I think we can really talk for hours.
Yeah.
I think it's about time we close because you also have wonderful things to do on your weekend instead of staying with me on a Friday, almost evening. So thank you so much for your time. And before we leave, I wanted to ask you about a lesson learned.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's a very pertinent question. A general mistake, and a huge mistake is to focus on the things you do and not thinking of other things. Sometimes you start in the legal industry and you think that regulation is everything and that you should focus on IP or on IT, and that's what matters, and that's the thing that you have to focus on regulation, right? On reading laws and directive and regulations and local laws and trying to understand what they say. But I didn't focus enough on the context and on understanding the context and the consequence and the economics behind and what's the purpose of it. Sometimes you get a decision or you have to interpret that according to the willingness of the regulator, or I tend to do a lot of research also in academia, so you think a bit of what's the reasoning behind, and you understand that going away from the legal jargon, from the wording of the laws and the interpretations we want to give to things, and going to the real world and understanding what's the real impact of it. what are we trying to solve, which is also the impact on, because we are thinking about artificial intelligence, but we are not thinking about the educational impact of artificial intelligence. Or the employment impact of artificial intelligence. So I think studying first the phenomenon, how it works, what are the implications, and then you may understand the regulation. But it makes you very incomplete from a human being perspective.
You don't have the picture, the whole picture. Yeah. It's like you get in a little piece of it and hope to understand the whole of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, thinking about, I don't know, if I go to dinner with some colleagues, what I tell, no, but Article 6 of regulation tells that I wouldn't be an expert on artificial intelligence, but I know more or less how it works, and I know more or less how's the social context I live in, and what's the kind of impact, or what are some of the impacts that the AI IoT may bring together, right? So I think that's a huge mistake I was doing at the very beginning of my career, just focusing on the wording on the job, and not doing other things that have nothing to do with the legal stuff. So I encourage everyone to do that. You can have fun. Maybe.
Yes, you can, and you can be much more creative too. I think if you broaden your view, more flexible thinking, and definitely understanding better the issue, which is a big plus.
Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you so much for sharing, and thanks again for your time. And I hope I can convince you another day to continue this conversation, because I really enjoy it.
It was my pleasure, Claudia. Thanks to you.
Thank you.